Buying cars can cost you millions and millions of dollars, but today I will show you the top 10 best free cars you must own. Starting with the LG RH8, which is honestly a vehicle that is pretty decent. This vehicle normally would cost you some money, but you can actually get this for completely free if you link your social club account. Because now when you go towards the Legendary Motor Shop, under the two-door vehicle section, you will see that this vehicle is absolutely free. But this isn't the only website where you can get this for free, because if you open up your phone, you will see that you can also go towards Benny's Original Motorworks, and if you go under stock, you will see that this vehicle is also free. But interestingly, there is a slider over here. The reason for this is by default, when you buy this car, which is completely free, you will get a model that looks exactly like this one. But at any point, if you want to upgrade this vehicle, which will cost you some money, you can change it and transform it into this vehicle, which is a completely different model and also has some slightly performance differences. However, if you're not looking to upgrade a vehicle and just get it for $0, that's also absolutely fine, because really the most important thing about the vehicle is how well does this vehicle actually perform. When you are driving with this car, you will immediately notice that the handling is pretty decent. The reason for this is because this is an all-wheel drive where the traction on the road is amazing. You will really easily be able to take turns with this car and doesn't tend to spin out much when you're taking corners with it. Really, the only downside of this car is that the speed of it isn't the highest of many of the cars that exist in the game, but you do have to keep reminding yourself that this is still a free vehicle that does allow you to customize it and make it into a pretty sick car. The LG RH8 is a sports car that is a two-door vehicle, but as I said before, you can upgrade this to the LG Retro Custom, which will then look like this, what I've shown in the gameplay, where the difference in performance is that the Retro Custom will actually be a little bit slower, but you will have better brakes in return for that. So honestly, if you weren't looking to spend money on this at all, by just keeping the default vehicle, you will have the best speed out of these two options. Now next, we got a pretty rare vehicle which you can actually not buy on a website. In order to get this vehicle, you will have to be in a public lobby, because you need to call Meriwether on your phone, where you then need to call mercenaries to one of the players that are inside of the lobby. It doesn't really matter which player it is, just make sure that the person you're calling it to, you're pretty close to them, since the mercenaries will go towards that location. As you can see right now, I just stood beside the person, which was actually AFK. You can simply take that down if you want to, and then immediately take this vehicle, which is the Canis Mesa, that you can then immediately drive away with and store it inside of your garage, where you will then be able to keep this vehicle. This is a pretty nice off-road vehicle where you do not have that many customization upgrades for it. However, when you are driving with this vehicle, I was actually surprised by the speed of it. It is of course not the fastest car in the game, but for such a big vehicle, which especially looks pretty heavy, it actually handles pretty lightly, and the speed of it is not that bad at all. This really is an OG vehicle, as it was already added into the game at 2013, which is more than 12 years ago already. So for just those reasons alone, I would definitely pick this up. The next car, which has a pretty rare livery on it, is on the Sentinel XS, which we can pick up from the street. This is a free car also, since we don't need to pay for anything at all. But in order to get this vehicle, you do have to follow a few steps. The very first step is that it needs to be at nighttime, since otherwise the vehicle won't spawn. Now in order to get this vehicle to spawn, start at this location where you want to slowly drive up this place, and when you eventually are above at this place, go towards the left side where you will see that it might have spawned at this location. However, if it's not there, go back at the bottom and simply try again. I do recommend going slowly up this place, since you will give the game some more time to let this car spawn in. And when you are up this place, just stand still for this place and look towards the right side or right in front of you. Don't look towards the left, so there is a bigger chance of this car getting spawned in. Just wait a bit, around 5 seconds. And now when you look towards the left side, you will see that I got the yellow variant, which has a pretty rare livery on top of it. So just take this car, and now you can store it inside of your garage. If you do not see this car, you might also see this purple one, which honestly looks even better in my opinion than this one. But you can keep trying this as many times as you want. Just make sure that it is nighttime, so this car will actually spawn. And now you can completely customize this car to whatever you like. There are many options to change this. The overall performance of this car is actually not bad too. You will have a decent speed going on when you're driving in a straight line. And what surprised me too with this car is that the handling isn't that bad. When taking turns with this car, you don't tend to spin out that much if you have control over this car. But if you want a car that has the fastest acceleration in the game, which also is free, you should get the Ocelot Virtue, which normally would actually cost you almost $3 million. In order to get this car for completely free, you will have to complete the first and last those missions, which you will have to start at this D over here. These missions are really beginner friendly to do, as there are only a total of 11 missions that you need to complete. But doing all of them can take a pretty long time, where eventually when you did complete all of them, it will definitely be worth it, because the Ocelot Virtue has the fastest acceleration, as I already mentioned before. When you're just starting to drive with this, you will notice the speed is amazing with this car. The handling isn't the best, as you will tend to spin out a lot in the corners, but to save yourself $3 million and get a free car that looks actually pretty sick as well, I will say that it is definitely worth getting this. But this isn't the only thing that you get for free, because when you just complete the first those missions, you will be able to buy the Asset Lab, which will cost you $750,000. However, when you complete the first those missions, you will also earn around that amount, so you basically get the Asset Lab business for completely free. But now, when you buy the Asset Lab, you also get the Brigade 6x6, which is one of the strongest vehicles in the entire game. Normally, you would be able to buy the Brigade inside of Warstock for $500,000, but by already buying the Asset Lab, which can also make you millions, you get the Brigade 6x6 for completely free. When you're driving with this car, you will notice that it doesn't drive that bad at all. For such a big car, the speed of it is not bad, especially when you're also reversing, the speed of it is pretty decent. But the unique thing about this vehicle is that it is able to take up to 48 RPG rockets. As you can see in this clip right now, I just keep shooting at the Brigade 6x6 and literally nothing at all happens. When you are playing in a public lobby and people are trying to grief you, it will be almost impossible for them to blow you up. So if you're really looking for a stronger vehicle that can also protect you in public lobbies from griefers, this is definitely the main one to go with. However, this isn't the only thing that you get for free when buying the Asset Lab, because you also get another vehicle, which is your delivery bike. You can simply call this from your interaction menu if you go towards Asset Lab, and then right over here you will be able to request your delivery bike, which will then spawn in just a matter of seconds right around you. This is the same bike that we use in the Cape Rico heist and the Gather Intel mission, but just the looks of it slightly adjusted, where the performance is basically the same. Now this bike is literally the perfect bike to do wheelies with it, as you will be able to hold this literally 24/7 as long as you hold your control button. But when you are doing a wheelie with it, the handling of this is actually pretty easy to control. You can do a wheelie and simply take a turn without having any problems at all. Plus, you can also customize this inside of your freak shop, which is definitely a bike I would never recommend you to skip. But if you're looking for a car that is a bit faster and can also take up a couple explosives, you should get the Duco Dev, which you can buy inside of the Warstock. You will see when you filter from price that it is completely free, but there is also a note written where you will be able to equip the Missile Lock-on Jammer on top of the Duco Dev. If you haven't heard of this before, you will definitely want to do this, because when you put this option on the Duco Dev, when people are trying to lock onto your car, for example with the Oppressor Mark II, they won't be able to do that anymore. So when they are flying behind you and are trying to take you down with their missiles, this will make it a lot harder for them to do it. But the performance of this car itself is also pretty amazing. The speed of it isn't that bad, but when you're driving on the road and crash into another car, your car will barely move at all. You will also see right over here I crashed right into this truck, and the only thing that really moved was the truck itself, while the Duco Dev was completely fine. So this is really a pretty heavy car, but when you are driving around with it, you honestly do not feel it that it is a heavy car, because it turns perfectly fine. You can also use this in a lot of missions where the windows are also partially bulletproof, as they are around 50% covered, so when NPCs are shooting at you from a further distance, it will be a lot harder for them to reach you. This car has a great balance with the acceleration and handling, and on the front window of the passenger seat, it's also a bit covered to make it a little bit harder to get shot at. Now this is a two-door vehicle in the muscle class, but when you are driving with it and I, for example, stick 2 sticky bombs on it, you will see that this car will be able to survive this. Only when there's a third sticky bomb being blown up, it will get destroyed. But you won't actually be able to throw sticky bombs out of this vehicle because the sides of it are actually closed, so the only weapons you will be able to use are your guns and not any of your grenades. But with the next car, you will be perfectly able to do that, which is by getting the Paragon R Armor. This vehicle is something that you cannot buy on on a website and also not pick up from the street, the only way how you can get this car is by completing the Miss Baker missions, which are a total of 6 casino story missions that you need to complete in order to get this vehicle at the end for completely free. These story missions can be done all completely solo, where you will have to own a penthouse in order to start them. But when you do that, you will get this car which you can then pick up and customize right after it. This is, as you already heard in the name, a armored vehicle, so it will be able to take up a couple explosives before it blows up. And now when you're driving with it, it is also a 2-door vehicle where you can customize this into a pretty sick looking car. This car has actually some pretty decent acceleration, and the top speed of this car is actually pretty good as it goes 121 miles per hour. So in some races you might be even able to beat other people with this car. But if you are looking for a free vehicle that you can immediately claim, you should get this vehicle inside the San Andreas shop, which is the Vapid Pisswasser Dominator that is exactly $0. When you are trying to customize this car, you will see that there are barely any options for this, so the car will basically look the same besides only the color and some minor adjustments. But now when you're driving with it, the speed is pretty average. The only thing that is really a big downside of this car is when you're taking corners with it, you tend to slip out almost every single time if you're going especially at a higher speed, but you do get this vehicle for absolutely nothing. So if you're more of a beginner player, definitely go and grab this one. Now inside San Andreas, you also have one other car that you can get for $0. This is the Sprung Buffalo, where many of you already recognize this from the drink. Just like the last car, this is a free vehicle that you can get and customize right after as well. For this car, however, you do have a lot more customization options if you want to transform this car into looking like something else. And just like the Dominator car, this is more of a vehicle I would recommend beginners getting, which can also fill up your car collection if you're trying to get a nice garage going on. Now these are the top 10 best free vehicles to own. The reason you're watching this is probably because you don't have a lot of money in GTA Online, but if you want to make a lot of money, check out this video where I've shown the top 10 best money making methods, starting from beginners all the way to the most experienced players in the game.